And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, children, people of all ages, as we are flying through this rock that is just circling the sun. We hope that we can be a sort of mental distraction as you kind of don't think about aliens, death, whatever you're thinking about on this lovely day. I'm your host, Matt McLaughlin, alongside Liam Higgins. Packed episode covering the NBA draft. Going to do some hot takes right off the bat because that's just the way the media rolls these days. The Sixers are making some moves. Also, some big uniform news out of the Sixers, which I just want to touch on real quick. Scrolling through the Twitters. Also, Kyrie just confusing the absolute, just leaving my head in a daze. Doesn't make any sense. So all that coming up, and I'm Matt McLaughlin, joined by Liam Higgins. If I didn't say that already, please like, comment, subscribe, hit those little three dots as you're listening to this episode, and just share the link with someone. It's not that hard. It takes 5 seconds. Just do that. So let's jump into the actual show of this. I don't know where to start. NBA draft. Let's start with that. Top 3 picks officially decided. Orlando Magic take Paolo Banchero out of Duke. OKC, the Oklahoma City Thunder, take Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga. Houston takes Jabari Smith out of Auburn. That's just the top 3. And we're going to be doing like biggest steals, biggest surprises, whatever. So Liam, what did you think about this draft just overall as a whole? And then we'll jump into like the hot takes and stuff.
I mean, I think everyone knew from the beginning it was a very hot, top heavy draft. I mean, the top 3 picks could have all been number 1 picks in any given year. But I mean, as like we're about to get into, there were a couple steals in the first round. I don't know if you want me to get into it right now.
Sure.
Or
go ahead. What do you think was your like biggest steal out of this draft? We'll just jump right into
so honestly, one of my favorite players in the draft was I'm still having trouble pronouncing his name, Ochai Agbaji.
I think you nailed it.
Did I?
I think so. That sounds about right to me.
But yeah, I loved his game all year. I think I don't think he really got enough respect, and that's kind of crazy to thinking about. Like, he was the best player on a championship team, and I just never thought that people talked about him enough. I think he's going to be great in the NBA. I think he's athletic. He can guard pretty much 1 through 3. He's got a great frame. He's 6'6", can shoot. And I think the Cavs really are building something special there with him, Okoro.
And, I was gonna say, like, I kind of agree. Like, that's not something I don't hate that. Like, you're not reaching for that. And I agree. Like, this draft was very top heavy. Once you get into like the 15s, the 15 to 20, the rest of the draft, it's kind of a crapshoot. And I like your pick with the Agbaji pick to Cleveland at 14. And as you mentioned, this was a guy that was the best player on a Kansas team that was the national champion this past year. But I do think that at number 4, there was a little bit of a steal with Keegan Murray going to the Sacramento Kings. Personally, because you're probably saying to yourself, whoever's listening to this, what, Sacramento did well in the draft? Yeah, I think so. Sacramento took Keegan Murray, a guy that they needed someone to fill that spot in at the 3 spot, because with Harrison Barnes, like, who's just been stealing money from the NBA. I don't know how this guy just does it, but he's been reliable. But I think Sacramento's just been kind of looking for an opportunity to offload him. And Keegan Murray kind of gives you a young option to at least make it tempting for other teams to trade for Barnes if you attach some picks with it as well. And I think Keegan Murray can really learn from Mike Brown, who just spent the last, 3 to 5 years with Golden State. So the coaching staff hopefully is in the right spot. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are definitely going to be getting him open shots. De'Aaron Fox has really evolved as a playmaker since coming into the league. He's not just the guy that, we kind of saw in his rookie year that just flies up and down the court. And Sabonis is one of the smartest passers in the game. So I think Keegan Murray was the best fit. And I don't think that taking another guard, which they could have taken with that pick, would have helped their situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think what it really means is that they have a lot of faith in Davion Mitchell. I think that they really think that he can be a cornerstone for them. Personally, I would have gone with Ivy if I were them, just because I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of Keegan Murray. I know he has a big frame. There's a lot that to like out of him. He scored 23 a game at Iowa. But it's interesting. Like, I kind of compare him to a guy like Harrison Barnes, right? So I think that he will be a solid player. I think that he will be a solid starter. I just don't think he'll be worthy of the 4th pick in a couple of years as we look back at it. And I don't even know why that is. I just, for some reason, I just never.
But why do you like Ivy more? Just because of his like scoring potential and he can kind of just go off whenever he wants to?
Yeah, no, I think Ivy, like as I was watching the NBA draft, they're going through comparisons and everyone pretty much said, Ja Morant or Dwayne Wade. Like they couldn't name any other like normal player. Like they had to name like all these good players, and I'm like, that's who we're comparing him to. We can't even just say like scrubs in the NBA, not scrubs, but just casuals in the NBA. Like everyone's comparing him.
Andrew Perkins had some wild comps. He had some wild comps.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if that's what we're going to compare him to, then that's, in my opinion, someone that I would want to take a chance on.
Yeah, and I just don't know. I think this was more about fit with Sacramento more than anything, because assuming you draft Jaden Ivey, if you're the Sacramento Kings, you're going to have a starting lineup of including Domantas Sabonis, Davion Mitchell, Jaden Ivey, plus Harrison Barnes. I feel like that's a lot of too many ball dependent guys to keep the ball moving. And as we saw in the finals, Golden State, when you keep the ball moving, that leads to success. Boston's half-court offense was atrocious, partly because they weren't moving the ball like they were in the beginning of the season, or even when they had that huge turnaround midway through. So I think Keegan, this is more about fit. And if he fits into that system and it becomes an 18, 20 point per game scorer and can shoot like 40 to 43% per year, I think that's Sacramento hit it out of the park, because this team has not gotten draft picks done well at all. Like they're like the Washington Commanders of the NBA. It's just bad overall. But outside of steals, what was the biggest surprise for you?
Honestly, like 5 minutes before the draft even started, I mean, everyone thought Jabari Smith was going to the Magic, and then Woj bomb drops literally as the Magic are on the clock, and they said they're going with Banchero, and I'm like, where? No one saw this coming until now. Like that was crazy, because I really thought that Jabari would be the pick.
I think this was like more of a best talent available pick, which is so corny. I hate that cliche, like, oh, take the best player available. No shit. What do you think they're doing most of the time? They're trying to take who they think is the best player available. But anyway, I've heard from people that Paolo isn't a good fit for this Orlando team, and that Jabari would have been a much better fit and could have done better with Orlando. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, honestly, I'm looking at it more towards what I think Jabari is going to have more success with the Rockets than Banchero would have.
Really? Why do you think that?
I love the fit next to guys like Kevin Porter Jr. And Jalen Green, just because I don't really think he needs to come in there and just be like a ball dominant guy, right? And I know he will. Like I know that is part of his game. Like he does need the ball, but those guys are going to allow him to, get space for his obviously great shooting. And he's not going to like be, I feel like on the Magic, he would have needed like more of an offensive role. And I don't really think he's equipped to do that yet. Like, I feel like he is still kind of trying to figure out his game. Like everyone thinks he's a spot up shooter, but I really think, he's big enough and he's strong enough to be able to evolve his game into becoming like a finisher. And that's honestly why I'm so high on him, because I really do think that although like everyone already recognizes that he is an elite prospect, I think there's still ways to go with him. Like I really do think that he can evolve into something even crazier than we can really think of now.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think there's kind of this like, this is a really bad comp. This is a Kendrick Perkins caliber comp, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's kind of like Andrew Wiggins getting drafted number 1 overall, where like, here's this guy, he's got this very good frame for a 3 or 4 wing, whichever position you want to play him in, has the talent and the athletic ability to play play tough defense, and can shoot well, but there's still a lot of untapped potential there. And I think that's where Jabari Smith, that kind of mold or that prototype fits. And I agree with you now that you kind of laid it out to me. When I saw Jabari Smith go to Houston, it felt like kind of like the air got taken out of me, like the air got taken out of my sails, because Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. are still trying to figure out how to be like good teammates and good facilitators of an offense. So if Jabari Smith goes there, I feel like he's not now that he's going there, not if, but when he goes there, it's kind of like limiting his opportunities to develop and grow. That's the way I kind of saw it. But now that you laid out the idea of he has time to develop alongside them, that kind of gets me on okay, this actually was a very good pick. And with me, like, in my opinion, the biggest surprise was probably Jaden Ivey falling to 5 to Detroit. Like, I thought he was going to be taken much earlier than that. And it's so weird because that St. Peter's game, he was so bad. What was it? The Sweet 16, Elite 8, whichever game that was. He just looked so bad. And he supposedly refused to work out with a few teams in the top 5. He didn't disclose medical records. I think it was to Sacramento specifically was one of the teams I heard. This is through other podcasts and shit. I'm not some like insider reporter. No, I'm just a doofus. Yeah, McBomb's coming in. No, I'm a doofus with a podcast. But yeah, Detroit is all of a sudden positioned in a very bright future spot, which is why I think they improved the most coming out of the draft. And we'll get into that probably right now. When I'm looking at Detroit, they got rid of the Jeremy Grant trade, or they got rid of the Jeremy Grant contract. They picked up a first rounder in the process. Sure, it's via Milwaukee, but that's still a good asset to have just in case you want to make another trade. And they get Jalen Duran from the Nets or from the Knicks. And all of a sudden, this is a young core with Jalen Duran can grow alongside Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey as they all figure out the league together. And Cade Cunningham is definitely in a spot. He's going to get a massive contract whenever he's eligible in a few years. And so Detroit will be kind of exciting to me, not as like they're going to be a Cleveland where they get into the top 5 of the East, but I would expect like 8, 7, maybe 6 seed is their ceiling. And I would expect them to be in the play-in tournament by the end of the season. And for Detroit fans, just be happy about that because it hasn't been good looks so far the last few years. But what team do you think improved the most coming out of the draft?
I mean, the obvious answer is Detroit. But like I said, honestly, not too far behind, in my opinion, is the Rockets. Not only did they get a guy in Jabari Smith, but they got a guy in Ty Washington that a lot of people were very high on in college. I think he'll be great. He's also a kind of guy that I think he does need a year or two to develop. But once he does, that's going to be perfect. Because I'm not sure yet if Kevin Porter Jr. is their point guard going forward. And I feel like he could slip right in there and fill in that void.
And Kevin Porter Jr. is like this weird, like, I don't know if this is the finished product of Kevin Porter Jr. Sure, he's a great scorer. And he had that 50 piece last season against the Bucks. But is that really all he's going to be? Is this very ball dominant forward / guard that you could have run the offense at one point? But I think having Jabari Smith at least just gives them more talent, and they don't have to throw what's his name Sengun out there, Sengun. So at least they get more star power that way. But Houston is so weird. And now with this whole John Wall situation, now that John Wall's finally bought out, and we finally have a fucking answer to that question. So I can
play basketball again. No way.
John Wall, the second most confusing situation behind Kyrie Irving was the John Wall situation. I don't know why it took so long. If I was Houston, I would have just gotten that done immediately. But anyway, these guys just need as much time as they can to grow and develop. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be some bad games. Like there's going to be some games where they're just getting smoked by 30, 40 points because they're all figuring it out together. But Houston, another team with a young core that I could talk myself into watching on a late night, like 10:30 tip off. Catch the first half. I'm not going to watch the whole game, but I'll catch the first quarter and see how competitive they stay in it. But I talked about Kyrie situation, which we'll get to, but also the Sixers made some moves. Daryl Morey made some great moves with trading for De'Anthony Melton. The Sixers get De'Anthony Melton in exchange for Danny Green and the number 23rd pick, which turned out to be David Roddy out of Colorado State. Never heard of him in my life. I'm just going to be honest. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. Just never heard of a guy out of Colorado State before. What did you think about this trade? Is it the right move at the right time?
So first off, I think I like it just because I think I'm more comfortable with a guy like De'Anthony Melton coming in than David Roddy, as you just said. Don't really know much about. But yeah, De'Anthony Melton's 24 years old. Yeah, I think he averaged a career high in points this year. He obviously can shoot. He's shot, I think, around 38% from three, which is awesome. But chipping out a guy like Danny Green, you definitely needed to bring back some defense. And now we don't really have to rely solely on Matisse to be that primary defender. Obviously, he will defend the best player, but now we have a guy, De'Anthony Melton, who can kind of, pick up the slack where if Matisse is hurt, if he's, on the bench, foul trouble, De'Anthony Melton's going to be great for us. I really, really like that move. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing coming into the season is for the Sixers, at least, is improving the bench. And I think really this is awesome move by Daryl.
Yeah, exactly. That was the biggest takeaway, was improving that bench. So I don't have to see Furkan Korkmaz out there for another 5 minutes, please, for the love of God Almighty. Yeah, I really like this move. You kind of mentioned the defensive prowess, I guess you could say, the one of those Sports Center guys, like, oh, he's really aware defensively of the passing lanes in this situation. It's like, maybe he just,
right, because like he's only 6'2", but he's got, I really didn't, before I really looked it up, I always thought of him to be like a very like lengthy kind of guy, but that's just because he's so good defensively that he can just pickpocket and, guard anyone.
Yeah, and he's averaged over a steal per game every season in his career. So it's 4 seasons. I don't know why I just said it that way, but and yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. And he kind of gives another facilitating option coming off that second unit instead of Shake Milton trying to run the second unit, which would, thank God we don't like. I respect Shake. I love Shake, but need another facilitator. That's what I felt like watching that Miami series. And even before that, with what was the first round series
for the Sixers?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Who do we play in the first round? Why am I
Raptors?
That's who it was. Oh yeah, those scumbag Northern fans.
Your favorite.
I hate the Raptors. I hate Toronto's fan base so much. But anyway, watching the Toronto series and the Miami series, when that bench unit came in, Doc had to leave Tyrese or Joel or James Harden out there, and it just kind of added this like anxiety and hold my breath feeling of like, oh God, what is this offense going to do? This could be either a 10-0 run where we stretch out the lead, or it just could be an utter collapse. And Joel Embiid only gets like 30 seconds of rest. And so now Melton brings that stability. And also Daryl Morey also signing PJ Tucker, who we put on our big board of free agents. Would just like to say that. Okay. we're not complete doofuses on here. Signing PJ Tucker, that again adds more stability. And it's supposedly, according to Keith Pompey of Philly Inquirer, I apologize if I butchered your last name. I'm used to it. McLaughlin is a tough name to pronounce, so I empathize with that. Getting PJ Tucker for supposedly a 3-year, $30 million contract, that's expensive as fuck. And I have a feeling that PJ Tucker is going to do something that just gets the Phillies fans to turn on him, or he could be one of the most beloved athletes in Philadelphia sports history. Could go either way. Sums up Philly sports. And again, adds more stability and brings more toughness, which they desperately need. I just like, where's the scoring? And also, does this mean that Tobias could potentially be on the move? And is Daryl looking to trade Tobias now that they have a PJ Tucker type guy that can start if needed to? Like, what'd you think about that PJ Tucker signing?
Like, I like it from the standpoint of it gives us a guy that brings, like you said, a lot of toughness, a lot of grit, because I feel like there weren't a lot of guys on the team this year that had that kind of aura about them.
It felt like Tobias and Tyrese were the only guys that were willing to go down in the paint and actually muscle some dudes.
And I like that. Obviously it brings in a veteran presence. But I think I like it more just because of the fact that it's PJ Tucker and he has that kind of respect around the NBA as being a guy that's going to do all the dirty work. And everyone respects him just because he is a kind of player that, will put himself on the line to help his team win. I like that. I just don't love the fact that, how old is he now?
He's got to be over 30, probably coming up on 35 at some point.
Yeah.
But keep going while I look this up.
As we mentioned in the last podcast, for me, and I kind of just contradicted it with my point about De'Anthony Melton. But
he's 37. Holy fuck! We're paying this dude until he's 4.
That's my point. Is that I'm not sure how long it's gonna last, and I do think in the end, although he might have a good year or two, I think in the end it might not be the best move, and I think it is Daryl Morey just kind of pulling the trigger with all of his former Houston Rockets, and I guess we're now becoming the Philadelphia Rockets now.
We're just bringing back the 2016 Rockets just 5 years, 6 years later before it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God.
I just think the biggest thing for me is that, one, how long will he last? And two, I don't really think a 3-year contract is something that is appropriate for PJ Tucker.
Yeah, but with all these moves, with the window that the Sixers are in, which is a championship window, if the Sixers win a championship, all these moves are validated. Every single one of these, whether it's the Tobias contract, whether it's the signing and trading Jimmy Butler away and signing PJ Tucker. I'm looking at PJ Tucker's minutes stats right now. He's played over 25 minutes per game the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's played over 25 minutes per game pretty much every season of his career, except the first 2 seasons he was in the league. And even that second season, he was averaging 24 minutes per game. So I'm fine with him playing 15, 20 minutes per game. He brings some toughness and he can swing games. And as we saw as Sixers fans, I wouldn't be surprised if Daryl Morey, hypothetically, Sixers win a title with PJ Tucker on the bench. And, there's the classic interview of oh, Daryl, when did you guys, know that PJ was the right guy to add toughness to this locker room, yada, yada. And he's like, when I saw in that second round series in 2022, PJ barking at our guys and how much he can mentally change a team, that's when I knew we had to sign that guy at all costs. So everything gets justified if there's a title. And it's getting harder and harder to swallow these 3-year, 4-year deals when we're going to be paying these guys late in their careers. But I mean, not signing JJ Redick was probably one of the biggest mistakes of this organization. So we've seen it backfire the other way,
I think just for me, and I know we mentioned this in a few podcasts now, or at least I have. I just think age is it's a very prominent issue with the Sixers. I think that we do need to get younger, but that also doesn't mean we can't. That doesn't mean we should just
blow it up
lottery picks and every year and just kind of hopefully they work out. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we need to get more athletic and we need to get younger. And although PJ Tucker doesn't really fit both of those needs, I do think we did also need someone to come in and kind of be a veteran presence and set an example from day one and really be the guy that we can rely on, besides, because I really don't think a lot of people are very high on Doc Rivers' coaching style nowadays, but bringing in a guy like PJ Tucker will definitely help with the locker room and just making sure everybody's on the same page and making sure that we know going into certain games like the playoffs what we're getting into and how we can obviously win those games. You there? I can't hear you. Hello.
all of his career. And
Sorry, you froze.
Dwight Howard, a couple of years ago, like Dwight Howard, my internet is shoddy right now. So if I fade in and out, just tell me.
Yeah.
But these type of veteran signings have worked out before with like Dwight Howard a couple years ago, JJ Redick for the last 3 to 4 years. For me, it's the cost, right? Like the cost of that $30 million price tag. If that's all guaranteed, that is tough to swallow. Pause. That's what she said. Had to.
My mom will love that when she watches this.
I'm sure she will. I made it that's what she said joke at a catering job, and everyone just kind of looked at me, and I was like, if I'm living in a world where that's what she said jokes aren't allowed, I don't want to live in it anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Watching too much of The Office. But they need the lower cost guys like a Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, some of those guys. And with Matisse, it's always been a question about his offensive game. For whatever reason, he plays well offensively when he's with Australia in the Olympics or those FIBA competitions or FIBA World Cups. But that doesn't translate for whatever reason when he rejoins the Sixers. I don't understand why. I really don't. And as of now, would I trade Matisse? Yes. But I do want to give him that leeway of at least building his stock up like halfway through next season to at least give him time to develop. And I hate giving up on young players like too soon in their careers, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I was really expecting Matisse to take a step up offensively this year. And that doesn't even just mean like scoring 20 points a game, right? That just means being able to hit open threes, and
Yes.
And he wasn't really able to do that consistently. And, I was one of those people where I'm like, we cannot trade him away in the Ben Simmons trade. We cannot trade him for Harden. And I was, super persistent about that. Like, no way. We're giving up Matisse. He's our best defender, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, now it's a totally different story. Especially if we're bringing in a guy like PJ Tucker and a De'Anthony Melton. I think he is definitely expendable at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Also, last thing on the Sixers, the Philly Inquirer reported today that the Sixers could bring back the Iverson black jerseys from the early 2000s.
It's about time.
I don't understand why this team didn't do this for this season. It was the NBA 75th anniversary. It was perfectly set up. Okay, you bring back the AI jerseys. You go on the run of getting into the playoffs and whatnot. And now the 70, like, I'm sorry, but bringing back the NBA. No, I'm not sorry. Bringing back the Iverson black jerseys for the 76th season is different than for the 75th season. I'd almost would have rather waited for another 25 years, push them back to the 100th season. I would have been cool with that. But yeah, I guess better late than never. I don't want to sound ungrateful. I'm grateful. I will be copping a Joel Embiid, the Sixers with that little script logo with the black, and it's dope. It's dope.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. It's been a long time coming for them. And I've just seen so many like Instagram edits of those jerseys. And I'm like, why the hell have they not put these out yet? Like, they look so cool. And the Sixers jerseys definitely need a redo. I really, they're just so boring, man. Like, I hate to say it, but they really are. Like, I'm just so ready for. Are you talking
like the regular ones that they wear during the season?
Yeah, just like the blue, the white. Yeah.
I wish. Also, this reminded me, the Sixers literally let Ben Simmons design a jersey, and this motherfucker still complained. I'm bringing this back to Ben Simmons. This dude still complained, and they gave him a jersey.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I don't want to play here anymore." God, I hate Ben Simmons. Yeah, enough Ben Simmons talk. Bum. Okay. Bryce Harper, we can't have nice things in Philly because Bryce Harper just broke his finger in the Padres closing game. Took a pitch. It was like a 97 mile per hour fastball from Blake Snell. Just rode in on him up high. And credit to Bryce. He said that he knew it wasn't intentional and it was just a pitch that got away from Snell. And thank God he said that, because like as I saw this happening on his TV, I thought like Philly was going to turn into like a bunch of goons for the mob and just start like legit just booking flights to San Diego and just showing up at Blake Snell's house. And
I
just
wouldn't be
like,
surprised.
I would not be surprised either. So I'm glad there's no bad blood, because honestly, like the Padres are still stacked. And if the Phillies have to meet the Dodgers in the postseason, I don't want the Padres having any bulletin board material if they got Tatis back and Machado's keeping up with what he's doing. But anyway, so now there's a lot of questions with the Phillies. Of course there are. And
No, they're not.
it's just they're 4-6 this season without Bryce, so they can stay afloat. They're capable of staying afloat, but like they're obviously going to have to make some moves. Do you have any like, kind of spitball idea targets that the Phillies should at least look at to trade for?
So I think the biggest thing for me is that I think we're solid in the infield. The outfield is probably my biggest question. Guys like Vierling and Moniak. I know obviously they're not totally like MLB players yet. Like they're still growing into what they can become. But I think those kind of guys, especially with Moniak, right? Like he was the number 1 pick in the MLB draft, correct?
Who was Moniak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think obviously like there is still potential there. And getting, guys that can kind of play that center field role that he, plays here and there now when he's in the lineup. Would be
whenever
huge.
He's there.
Yeah. Also I think that it's interesting when we signed Didi Gregorius. I remember everyone just being so excited about it, and I think he's been underwhelming. I think you can get something better for him. And
yeah,
again, like Bohm has been solid. I think you keep Bohm, but I don't think we should shake it up too much. I do like our core group right now. Maybe you bring in a pitcher or two, but I mean, even Zach Eflin's impressed me.
Really? I feel like I've been disappointed by Zach Eflin.
Really?
I feel like this year it felt, because remember towards the end of the season last year, he was the bona fide number 3 guy. And I'm looking up his stats right now. I mean, okay, so he's kind of posting a similar ERA. He's got a lower whip than last season. He's got half innings pitched. For whatever reason, I still feel like I'm missing something from Zach Eflin. And I feel like it isn't enough to overcome a potential postseason matchup where you got to win a 3-game series, a 5-game series, however the fuck these playoffs are laid out right now, because baseball changes it up like every single year. And with the Phillies, like they got to go bargain bin hunting, or at least try and package a Gregorius with draft picks or cash considerations, and at least try and get a guy on a bad team that they can at least poach away. And one guy that kind of popped up for me was Trey Mancini with Baltimore. Trey Mancini is having one of the better seasons of his career. He's healthy. He's played in 67 games this season. He's hitting 281 on batting average, which is the highest since the 2019 season, he was hitting 291. And compared to that 2019 season, he's got a higher on base percentage, and his slugging percentage is a little bit down. But I think with the lineup that the Phillies have, there's less pressure on him to produce. So that'll make his approach much more comfortable, and he'll be much more kind of at ease. So with that being said, I would personally try and get Trey Mancini at all costs. Not all costs, obviously. Don't trade fucking Alec Bohm. Like, don't do something stupid. Yeah. But I feel like I have to say that with the Phillies. But he was an ideal target for me that I would at least try and do something. Because now, like, you can't waste this opportunity. You signed to Castellanos, you get Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber is crushing the ball this month. There's no way that the Phillies can just sit on their laurels and hope that when Bryce comes back around September, which is what some reports are suggesting, that you'll be in the divisional race, you'll be in the wild card race, and that Bryce will take you over the top and he'll just come back in, fit like a glove, and everything will be fine. That can't happen. If they do, I will march down to Dave Dombrowski's office and try to get in, probably get thrown out, but try to get in, at least launch some type of unease and anger in the process. But yeah, I mean, how do you think this really sets the Phillies back, or do you think they'll be able to stay afloat?
I think in the beginning I thought it would, but Kyle Schwarber's just been so dominant. Like I feel like he is kind of picking up where Bryce is not going to be there. Like I do think that he's kind of going to fill that offensive role. Like he really doesn't, like, it's almost like he doesn't, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like how old is he again?
Schwarber?
Yeah.
Didn't he just turned, I want to say he just turned
like I feel like he's there every time we need him. And there's never a time where he's hurt or he's like, you know, lackadaisical.
Yeah,
like
the problem was that he wasn't producing. There was a point this season where his batting average was as low as like 160, 170.
He's just,
and now
on him. That's my biggest thing, is that he's so dependable. And I'm also not saying that he's the whole team, right? Like I do think, you know, Castellanos is picking up a little bit.
Yeah, Castellanos just had that 4-hit game.
Mm-hmm. But I obviously it is a setback, but I don't think it is a major setback at all.
So Schwarber is 29, turns 30 next March. So he's definitely not aging by any. Well, he is aging, obviously, but not old as dirt like PJ Tucker, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. But the Phillies kick off the series against the Braves tonight as we're recording this, and the Braves don't have Kenley Jansen for the time being, which is great, I guess, like cool, but it's still just kind of concerns me, like how long can Schwarber maintain this pace? How long can they really keep this going? And they're getting towards the end of the first half of the season. They got 3-game series against the Braves, 3-game series against the Cardinals, and then a 3-game series against the Nationals. So those are their next 9 games as we're recording this. And it's just the Cardinals are absolutely killing it. Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright are playing like it's 2011 all over again, which boggles my mind. Scientists should be studying this for years to come. And with this upcoming series, this is the big push that you can make. If Schwarber can get his average up to, I said it, I don't know if I said it on this podcast, I said to someone, I swear that if Schwarber can get his average up to 220 by the All-Star break, and then get through the All-Star break, come back rejuvenated, and go on a tear to open the second half of the season where they're all rested and come back with at least a little bit of hope and like, okay, we got their ship rightfully on the right path. That is huge. And there's no more deflated feeling than going into an All-Star break when the team is on a 3-game losing streak, 4-game losing streak. They've lost 3 out of their last 5, whatever it is. There's no more deflating feeling than that as a baseball fan, because then it's like, oh shit, what are we going to see in the second half of the season? So if they can end this All-Star break on a positive note, that puts even more pressure on the Mets. That puts even more pressure on the Braves to keep up their hot streaks and their, kind of keep going the way they've been going. And so I personally think it'll be steady at first, but there's going to be some low points. There's going to be some low points probably coming out of this All-Star break where you're going to probably see a few shutouts. The Phillies are just going to be shut out. Like that's just going to happen. And I hope Moniak this is finally the opportunity for Moniak to get back to the Moniak that we saw in spring training, where he was hitting like Ted Williams type numbers. And that'll hopefully open the floodgates for everyone else to get going. And maybe that gives the pitchers more confidence, take more chances, and then the defense steps up and everything gets going and clicking on all cylinders. But it's a scary situation. I would not be surprised if the Phillies just come at. We said this last week. We always jinx the Phillies. We did it again. We did it again. We did it again. So here's hoping. I'm not saying they will. Here's hoping, because I don't want to jinx it. Here's hoping that they can figure everything out and they can just stay 500. I think if you stay 500, and that'll be a huge, not boost, but like not a moral win, but also like that's a good thing, which is weird for me to say, be mediocre. Yeah. But that's the way I feel. It's just, that's the way I think the way this division shakes out, because I'm waiting for the Mets collapse. I'm waiting for that one big losing streak where they hit a wall and they can't recover. This is going to happen at some point. At least I hope, because then this clip is going to sound so stupid, but that's the way this cookie crumbles. All right, back to basketball. Finish up with this Kyrie stuff. Kyrie officially opts into his last year of his contract, $37 million. He will get this upcoming season, and then he will be an unrestricted free agent with the Brooklyn Nets. However, there's trouble in paradise. That was the phrase I was looking for. There's trouble in paradise still. Shams reported the night of the draft last Thursday that Kevin Durant is still, quote, closely monitoring the Nets situation in the offseason and considering his options for the future. So there's no guarantee that KD still comes back despite all of this after the season is played out. And there's still heavy mutual interest supposedly between the Lakers and Kyrie, which I have no idea why. I don't understand it. But now that Kyrie's opted in, Kevin Durant's there at least for another year. The Lakers have Russell Westbrook for another year as he opted in this morning. Where do the Nets go from here to just stable, like just get back to stability? Like where can they go that they can finally reach the promised land that they haven't reached so far with KD and Kyrie?
So first of all, I don't really see, obviously, like everyone thought Kyrie was going to the Lakers as of, yesterday pretty much. But
yeah,
I really do. I don't think KD will leave. The most interesting scenario I saw, though, was that I would think this would be super cool. I don't know if it'd work, but it'd be super cool. Is that if KD goes to OKC again, and they kind of do like an Andrew Wiggins kind of deal, right? Where they ship out Chet Holmgren and try to get another star to pair alongside Shea and KD. I think that was the coolest thing.
That's like if NBA 2K blacktop mode was like was like a real thing. Like Shea and KD, and then Chet and Ben Simmons. Let's just see how this works out.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be fun to watch. And I just don't understand how Kyrie can think this way. Like I've never understood this. And there's a hilarious tweet. So after Shams tweeted that he was opting in, he also retweeted Kyrie's statement on Twitter. And Kyrie's statement was, quote, "Normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. I've made my decision to opt in. See you in the fall, A11 even." And then I got to give credit to the dude who replied to this, Pure NBA at pure_NBA 23. He said, "This dude seriously thinks he's MLK for opting in," which is
Socrates Irving at it again.
Socrates. Oh my God. Like, how can you be this? I've never met someone like, I get it. People are different. We all have different opinions as different human beings. We all have our brains are wired completely differently to who we are as human beings. However, I've never met someone so more out of touch with how they're perceived as a person. Like, I've never seen this before. And Kyrie also like called out Stephen A earlier today too. And then Stephen A did a classic like notes app text and screenshot and posted it to the gram. And it baffles me. It really does baffle me that Kyrie is just like, you know what? I'm gonna confuse these motherfuckers. I'm gonna confuse them. I'm gonna say some words. I'm gonna drop some bombs on them. And it's like, I don't think this pairing works out. I really don't. Kyrie is so unreliable, not just from an availability perspective, but that Boston series, sure, he had that insane fourth quarter, that second half in game one in the Boston series where he went off. But at those last, 3 games, 4 games, he wasn't the same guy. And that heavy isolation style is exactly what the Nets need to get away from. That is not going to work in the NBA. You need basketball as a game based in ball movement. I sound like a dude in like the 80s, talking about like dudes from like the 50s. Like basketball is a game based on ball movement. You need to have your teammates involved because otherwise, as the Celtics did, they keyed in on KD and Kyrie and made their lives living hells. So the Nets need to figure out some other supporting pieces. And if I was the Nets, I would have just been like, fuck it, go walk, go. We don't want you. Like, get out, see what opportunities you're going to get. And also, I want to get like, what do you think about how the Nets, like, do you think the Nets are kicking themselves for not keeping that young core of like Karis LeVert, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Allen, like those guys? Do you think they're kicking themselves over that? Like, we had a homegrown team that was beloved in the city and a coach that was kind of on the rise. And we just kind of blew that all up for this headache. Like, do you think the organization's thinking that?
I mean, I think a little bit. I mean, obviously Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are light years ahead of all those three guys, but
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, obviously I think they like established a culture in Brooklyn. I don't really think KD or Kyrie or any of these players on the roster right now have ever come close to establishing a kind of culture identity as that those guys did. But I mean, I think another thing we really haven't mentioned is that the Nets are pretty deep, right? They just can't like there's I don't know if
are they though? Are they?
No, I think Bruce Brown's obviously. I think we mentioned him in the last podcast. Sorry, that he'd be awesome for the Sixers, but I don't think they're gonna give him up. And then they have a guy like Cam Thomas, who I think is going to be really good. But it's weird to me how, I mean, obviously we don't know how the Ben Simmons situation is gonna pan out. But
Ben Simmons is not taking Brooklyn over the top. Yeah. I can tell you that. I'm willing to go Skip Bayless on this. I will die out, and Ben Simmons will not take Brooklyn over the top because basketball is not his priority. And I'm trying to find where the fuck is Brooklyn? I'm trying to look up Brooklyn's roster. I agree. Like that was Cam Thomas. Yeah, he's going to be a big time scorer for years to come, I think, in the league. Bruce Brown, true. Also true. But how much more are they going to be relying on these aging guys like a Patty Mills and Andre Drummond? Blake Griffin got no playing time until game 5, game 4. And even then you knew it was just Steve Nash throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
I just think if you replace either Steve Nash with a better coach, or maybe Kyrie is the problem, which I wouldn't. I mean, I obviously believe he is, but if you replaced him, with a guy like Damian Lillard or something, I think that team's a championship contender right away. And not that this team isn't, but there's too many question marks. They just have too much going on in the locker room, and I do like the roster as constructed, but I think that Kyrie is just way too much to handle, as we just read in that tweet. I think this guy's just insane, and I don't feel bad for KD at all, but in a way I sort of do, just because I would just leave at this point if I were him, but I know he won't do that. But
yeah, do you really think he's gonna leave for the second time in 4 years? Like
he can.
Yeah, like this is what bothers me about certain players is that they think that every single like criticism about them, sometimes this is not all players, some players think that every single criticism is like, oh, you're anti-player, you're old media, as Draymond's coining now. It's like, no, dude, like we're just holding you accountable. Like there's a fine line between being anti-player and holding a player accountable. Kyrie, for example, is it really too much to ask to show up for work, dog? Is it really, if it's injury, that's one thing, obviously, but he just disappeared on the Nets for a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was, when the January 6th riots happened. And then this year, he didn't get the vaccine, which respect. I'm not going to get into that whole debate because it's not what this podcast is about, but you're still missing half of your games, which could have put the Nets probably out of the play-in tournament, which, okay, if they're out of the play-in tournament, do they get home court advantage? If they get a home court advantage, how does Boston handle going into a game 5, a game 7 in Brooklyn. And there's just so many different things. And a lot of this just goes back to Kyrie. And Brooklyn's a team that is trying to win a title with KD. And I respect KD for sticking with Kyrie and saying, hey, if you trade away Kyrie, I'm not coming back. I respect that, but it's not the smartest move, in my opinion. And I'm not one of the greatest scorers that's ever walked the planet Earth, but that's just my opinion. And it just, if I'm Brooklyn, I would at least start looking at plans for the future and just how can I build, what does a team with Cam Thomas, Bruce Brown look like what pieces would they need just to kind of get a jump start on that? Because I'm not going to sell the farm just to keep KD happy and have a massive headache in Kyrie, who I don't know when he's going to play next.
Yeah, I think in the end, although I do, it's fun to speculate what's going to happen in these next couple months. But as far as the KD and Kyrie situation, I think it will end up just being much ado about nothing. I really do think that they're both going to be in Brooklyn. Obviously we'll see what happens next season, but for now, I think they're just going to stick there.
That's fine. It's a good way to end it. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on all audio and video platforms. Check out the video there. We got some clips up. And yeah, so that does it all for Liam Higgins and Matt McLaughlin. That's me. And we will catch you in the next episode. So let's all enjoy the summer. Let's all try and pray that the Phillies don't fuck this shit up. Let's also pray that Kyrie has someone that can get through. Because I'm hoping someone's there to just get through to him. I
don't even think a priest could get through to him at this point.
A priest is just an abstract concept created by man in order to, yeah, it's like the Pope's not really real, dog. Like it's all just a simulation. It's like, okay, Kyrie, did you just like smoke too much weed today? Like what happened? Not saying Kyrie smokes weed. It's just a joke. All right, Kyrie, before you start, just start blasting away on Twitter. All right, it's just a joke. Wasn't alleging anything. All right, that does it all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Oh, this is a dumb ending, but whatever. All right, we're gone. We're done. Irish goodbye. All right, done.